I said we're closed, Bozo.
I wouldn't. And that's Mr. Bozo.
Bill Murray plays a Manhattan bank robber who wears a clown disguise in Quick Change, one of 5 big new summer movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is named Quick Change, and this is a welcome change from Bill Murray, whose last 2 movies have been big disappointments. This one is not. Unlike Ghostbusters 2 and Scrooge, which tried too hard for laughs, Quick Change is more suited to the laid-back Bill Murray approach, in which he seems to be constantly bemused as a spectator watching the stupidities of the world as they roll right past him. As the movie opens, Murray is dressed as a clown, so at first, when he announces a bank robbery, the guard thinks he's joking.
Hugh, let's not mess with me today, okay? I'm robbing the bank.
What the hell kind of clown are you?
Crying on the inside kind, I guess.
The robbery goes smoothly for Murray and his 2 partners, played by Gina Davis and Randy Quaid. It turns out that the hard part is getting to the airport.
Good afternoon.
He's asking where to.
Oh, God, he just means which airport, that's all. Kennedy. JFK.
Good afternoon.
It's Fred! Stop! Ah! You don't even understand colors, do you?
Eventually, they find a bus that might take them to the airport, but the driver, played by Philip Bosco, is fanatically devoted to company policy.
Come on, I've got a schedule of the key. What can I do to help?
Behind the white line!
Listen, I'll pay his fare.
Fine. You have exact change?
You better get some help. You're becoming Ralph Cramden's evil twin.
Quick Change is one of those comedies that applies quietly insane logic to completely impossible situations. The bank robbery itself involves a clever deception that actually did fool me for most of the moment anyway, and the getaway is complicated by Murray's choice of partners. He's not really a bank robber anyway. He's an urban planner who's fed up and can't take it anymore, and Gina Davis isn't a criminal either, but a woman who was turned on by his daring in even thinking about a bank heist. The Quaid character has admired Murray since childhood and will follow him anywhere, usually causing a lot of trouble along the way. Quick Change is a meandering comedy that meanders its way through New York and into enough laughs that I recommend it.
I liked the fact that the bank robbery was very clever, the opening thing, and these are 3 wonderful actors and personalities. I just don't think that when it got to getting to the airport and made that the real tough job of robbing the bank is easy, that it had them do enough interesting things. That's really it. I have sort of a so-so reaction to the picture.
Well, you know, the 2 big things that happen on the way to the bank are that crazy cab driver,
right,
and then Philip Bosco is very funny as the bus driver, and other people turn up, including the hippie, the old leftover hippie who's trying to get on the bus and can't figure out why his guitar is stopping him. And I thought the whole bus sequence, and Bosco, you know, this guy who does everything by the book, I thought that was a great little bit. I thought there were good things all through the movie.
I liked the first time that I saw Bosco do it, and then it didn't work enough for me. These 3 people, I thought, could have done almost anything other than what they did do, and it would have been funnier. And even though I disliked the picture, I really wasn't compelled by it. Our next movie is a different kind of picture, although it has some comedy elements into it. It's called Arachnophobia, the scientific name for a fear of spiders, and this is a most entertaining thriller laced with comedy as a deadly South American spider finds its way to a small town in California where it reproduces with more ordinary spiders, creating a deadly new strain that starts bumping off townspeople with a single bite. The main human star of the film is Jeff Daniels, playing a big city doctor who has moved to the sleepy rural village, and wouldn't you know it, he's afraid of spiders.
Now, if you should see one, don't try to capture it, don't try to kill it, just run.
Hired to kill the spiders is Roseanne Barr's TV husband, John Goodman, who is low-key funny in the role of the funky exterminator. He doesn't realize at first how deadly the spiders are.
There was a case in Florida where one of my colleagues bumped into a nest of black widows. Sustained over a dozen bites and lived. Of course, he permanently lost control of all of his bodily functions. There's no spider here. But I will hunt down the alleged arachnid and spreads them to kingdom come.
As the death toll mounts in the town, the world's foremost expert on spiders, fortunately located nearby and nicely played by Julian Sands, is called in for his opinion.
They spread out from a central nest in a web-like pattern and dominate the entire area. But in their original habitat, they are contained by geography. That isn't true here.
Now, the test of the effectiveness of a creepy, crawly picture like Arachnophobia can be easily measured. I call the scratch test, which is how often do you scratch yourself during the film out of nervousness, or how often, as a practical joke, do you scratch the person you went to the movie with just to frighten them. There was a lot of scratching between my wife and myself during Arachnophobia. The low-key performances work well here. Jeff Daniels is a fine everyman as the new doc in town, and there's one chilling line of dialogue. I think about 60,000 spiders are supposed to exist in the average rural acre of land. That frightened me terribly. Good fun in this picture.
Gee, spiders are our friends. You should be happy to know there are probably good 3,000-4,000 spiders in your house, for example.
I'm very happy to hear.
You're eating up tons of insects every year that otherwise would probably be driving you and your wife into scratching yourselves even when you're not looking at the movies. I enjoyed it too, and one thing I liked about it is the fact that they only made it scary up to a point.
Right.
I mean, there are people who are utterly terrified of spiders, and I think even they will enjoy this movie because the movie doesn't go over the top into gruesome, awful, terrible horror. It's kind of playful horror. It's even I think it's a movie that younger kids will enjoy, grade school kids, because they can scream and they can be frightened without it being too real.
That's where the John Goodman character comes in. Just as when the body count starts to mount, he comes in playfully, and the movie does a nice job, and it's hard to do, of shifting tone without ever losing the tension that these spiders may attack. The other thing, as the picture started, I thought, this isn't going to work, because a spider is very small, and for it to be a credible threat to you on screen, like a shark or something, a killer, it has to be big, physically big. But they managed, through some photography and then through these vulnerable situations, the shower, the going to the John and having the spider there, to make the spider actually threatening.
Yes, especially when they were sitting on the John. When we come back, Ghost with Patrick Swayze communicating with Demi Moore from Beyond the Grave.
Molly.
Our next movie is named Ghost, and the ghost in the title belongs to Patrick Swayze, an investment executive who has just moved into a new apartment with his girlfriend, Demi Moore, when he is killed one night by a mugger. His ghost stays on the scene, however, and discovers that he wasn't a victim of random violence. He was murdered. The ghost uses a psychic, played by Whoopi Goldberg, in an attempt to communicate this idea to Demi Moore, but at first Moore remains completely unconvinced.
He says he loves you. Sam would never say that.
Ditto, tell her ditto.
How is ditto? Ditto!
Swayze grows alarmed when Moore disregards his warning, so he keeps tabs on her, and here he eavesdrops on her conversation with another investment executive, played by Tony Goldwyn.
How could you believe some fortune teller from Brooklyn who just shows up at your door?
I sat there and watched her have a conversation with him.
Oh, bye, Mom.
The ironic thing is that Whoopi Goldberg has always thought she was a fake psychic, and now that she's real, she can't get anyone to believe her.
Why did he come back?
I don't know.
Why is he still here?
He's stuck, that's what it is. He's in between worlds. You know, it happens sometimes that the spirit gets yanked out so quick that the essence still feels like it has work to do here.
Would you stop rambling?
I don't think I'm rambling. I'm just answering a question. He's got an attitude now.
I don't have an attitude.
Yes, you do have an attitude. We're having a little discussion.
Well, one of the things I like in Ghost, among them the movie's mixture of humor and the supernatural. And I also like the whole gimmick of Swayze using Goldberg to communicate with his lover, Demi Moore. What I didn't like was that the movie could have been so much brighter and smarter than it is. Demi Moore is so reluctant to believe that her late boyfriend is really talking to her through Goldberg that after a while it actually gets annoying. I mean, how much proof does she need? Goldberg is able to look through the door and say, that's the T-shirt that you were wearing when your husband spilled a margarita on it, and she still doesn't know this is really on the level. The ending of the movie is a combination of traditional Hollywood violence and traditional Hollywood corniness. I kept waiting for a big emotional release, and everything was predictable. Still, it's a clever and inventive effort. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough to recommend it.
I do like it enough to recommend it. There are some flaws in this picture. I think that, however, you're really incorrect. At the point at which the through-the-door T-shirt sequence, that's late in the film, and at that point, I believe that she does believe as much as you could possibly believe.
At that point, she should absolutely believe. Gene, why are we still playing this game?
Because, Roger, if I were to play some of those tricks on you, there would be part of you, even as a reporter, as a skeptic, you say, what the hell is going on here? You do not believe that someone next to you who's left you is talking to you. You just don't buy that. So that's healthy skepticism. Beyond that, I think the film is romantic, and that's, I think, the thing that you didn't focus on.
I had one problem with the scene where Swayze realizes that if he ever wants to touch Demi Moore again, he's going to have to do it through Whoopi Goldberg's body. Right. And he occupies her body, and then Goldberg reaches out and takes Demi Moore's hand, and and then they cut so that we can see that it's Patrick Swayze holding her. I thought it would have been ever so much more poignant if it had been the two women. In other words, why should we be able to see it's Patrick Swayze? Where are the rules here as to who is seen as what?
I agree with you. Again, that occurs, now you're talking about almost the very end of the picture, and I think that's a mistake, a legitimate mistake, but I don't think that you've given the full richness of this. But you said there are lots of things you like. I think that the picture is pretty rich. I had a problem at first with Whoopi Goldberg seemed like so contemporary in this fanciful story, and then she got good after a while in the picture. She hasn't been good in a movie in a long time.
You always like any movie that has to do with love that comes back from beyond the grave. There's never been a single movie like that you've disliked.
You think Me Alone? Me Alone? And how about the rest of the world?
It's kind of a soft spot with you. I think
for me, and I think most of the world, which is probably why they keep making them.
Okay, well then this is a movie for the rest of the world. Coming up next, the controversial bad-mouth comedian Andrew Dice Clay stars in his first feature film, playing a rock and roll detective in the adventures of Ford Fairlane.
What is it they call you? Mr. Rock and Roll Detective?
Please say, but which would simply go down in history as just another bad movie if it didn't mark the first starring role of comic Andrew Dice Clay. So controversial because his nightclub act reportedly is so hostile toward women and minorities. In the movie, Clay plays a similarly vulgar-mouthed detective who drives a 1957 Ford Fairlane car and specializes in cases involving the rock and roll industry. As the film opens, a heavy metal star has been murdered, and Ford Fairlane is on the case as he visits a radio shock jock who wants to hire him to find a missing relative.
And I lost track of her. I want her back, because she's my daughter, my pride and joy.
Level with me, Johnny.
All right, she's my sister. She's my daughter. She's my sister and my daughter. Look at the picture and find her and bring her back to me.
Another client is a rich woman played by Priscilla Presley, who also has a problem that needs solving.
Make yourself comfortable. Some juice? Sorry about the glasses. The house on my breath.
In the tradition of detective movies, Ford Fairlane has a hard-boiled, devoted secretary played by Lauren Holly.
You look beautiful. Afterwards, I'll take you out, throw a burger down your throat. We'll have a great time.
You're truly a man among men.
Solving the various crimes in the film degenerates at the film's end into a routine movie fight between Ford Fairlane and a thug played by Robert Englund, better known for his role as Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
You put down the gun. Let's go with it. What, are you afraid of me? Come on, mano to mano. Fisticuffs, baby. Let's go with it. Just you and me. No one's around.
Anyway, you want it.
The story here is really most confusing as he weaves his way in and out of the rock world, but even more repellent is the character of Ford Fairlane played by Andrew Dice Clay. Talking like an X-rated cross between Sam Spade and Rodney Dangerfield, Ford Fairlane is simply not funny. He's a boring blowhard, and because he doesn't have a single interesting case to solve in this picture, I mean, none of the victims here are worth being saved in some way, I found the whole experience of watching this movie to be an utter waste of time.
This movie is completely uninvolving. It has a hero I didn't like.
Yes.
Villains I didn't hate, victims I didn't sympathize with, and a plot I couldn't follow.
I could not follow.
And it's photographed in an ugly, really garish way, a kind of a nighttime neon-lit universe that is supposed to look like the club scene of L.A., but essentially just looks like an explosion at a drive-in somewhere.
Well, you know, this picture was made, I was disappointed for another reason. Everyone's going to be talking about it. This is the Andrew Dice Clay movie. The director of this film is Rennie Harlan, who did Die Hard 2, which I think is the best movie of the summer, and he even did Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which was really well made in that series. And here, I would have expected just so much more from him. I didn't dislike the look of the film as much as you, but there was nothing to like in the picture. Nothing to like.
Andrew Dice Clay, I think, oddly enough, has a future as a movie actor.
I don't know.
As long as he doesn't play the Andrew Dice Clay comic character. I think he does have, I was asking myself this question, does the guy have a future? I think he does have a future. He could probably make a great villain. He could probably make a great heavy or a great character in the right kind of role. He would be good at that. As Andrew Dice Clay, he is exactly what you called him, a boring blowhard who is completely uninteresting.
I don't understand.
Not funny, and not
one of his gimmicks is to get cigarettes out and he snaps his hands a couple of times. I mean, I don't think they're entertaining. I don't know. Nothing about it is.
No, you're right. When we come back, Jetsons, the movie version of the long-running TV cartoon program.
Up and at 'em, Mr. J.
The next film is named Jetsons, the movie, and this is the big screen version of the long-running classic TV cartoon show about a family that lives in the future but is otherwise amazingly similar to the Flintstones who live in the past. Anyway, you look at them, they're not the Simpsons. The characters will be familiar to fans of the show, and so will the movies look, the kind of automated animation that was done quickly and cheaply and superficially in the early days of television before computers came along to lend a hand.
Bye, darling.
Destro!
The late Mel Blanc does the voice of Mr. Spacely, the movie's villain who basically wants to strip mine the galaxy and expects George Jetson to go right along.
And now, with your family beside you, you face a new challenge. Are you up to it, Jetson?
Yes, sir, Mr. Spacely.
The TV show had fun with its futuristic inventions, but robots like this one look more like a vision from the past.
I'd like to meet all the employees.
You just did.
I don't know, maybe I didn't connect with the Jetsons, the movie, because I was never a fan of the TV show. All I could see here was a labored and an interesting plot illustrated by obsolete and mechanical animation. I know that the simplistic animation style of this movie was the style of the Jetsons, so it's kind of a classic look, but that doesn't make it good, and this is the kind of movie that seems old-fashioned, even if it is set in the future. Maybe little kids would like it, real little kids. I didn't.
I didn't at all. I mean, first of all, the characters, I think, are really empty. I mean,
who cares?
I mean, this George Jetson is a complete wimp, and not a funny wimp. He's just he's a dullard. The wife is the dutiful wife. The little boy is a little brat. The girl wants to fall in love. The teenage girl wants to fall in love with these creatures. One blue-skin creature. There's also a pop singer that she likes to. There wasn't an interesting moment in the picture, and it throws in a very contemporary ecology theme here. I suppose the drawing style is. I don't know. I think you're a little rough on the drawing style. It is a very specific style that it had, and so you can recall that with nostalgia. It's possible.
You can recall it with nostalgia. Gene, I would rather recall it with nostalgia than experience it with nostalgia. Right. I mean, the mouths that go open and close like this.
It's not clutch cargo. I mean,
no, and then people who drive around in their cars without moving, then they turn their head, and then they turn it back again. Come on.
It's not beautiful. I didn't think it was beautiful, but more than that, if you're going to recreate the Jetsons, give them a story. You have a ready audience that did like that show, first drawn in '62, that would run to that picture.
Yeah, they're all about 50 now.
No.
Just what we have a lot of 48-year-old people who are nostalgic for the obsolete animation of the Jetsons, and they'll run to the picture.
On that basis, people would, Dick Tracy, you're going back farther, and Batman, you're going back farther.
A reason to go back.
Yeah, but they could have made a picture of that scale and weight here, and they did not. There's no wit in the film at all. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on the show. A split vote on Bill Murray's gentle bank robber movie, Quick Chain. Roger liked its droll approach. I liked the robbery, but wished he had created more interesting adventures for the rest of the film. 2 thumbs up for Arachnophobia, the spider movie that does a nice job of balancing horror and humor. A split vote on Ghost, the Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore love story and thriller. I enjoyed the romance. Roger felt the plot was simple-minded. 2 thumbs down, way down, for The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. And 2 more thumbs down for Jetsons, the movie, a blown opportunity because of an empty script. And the pictures that I like then are Arachnophobia, and I think also possibly because of Jeff Daniels' performance, playing the average guy and doing it uncommonly well. I don't see him enough. I really like him in most everything he's ever done.
Arachnophobia, and I'd also recommend Quick Change with Bill Murray.
Ghost for me.
And Ghost for you. That's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with more new movies, including the comedy The Freshman, starring Marlon Brando as a mob godfather who befriends college student Matthew Broderick, and Navy SEALs, starring Charlie Sheen and Mike O'Bain as members of an undercover anti-terrorist task force. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.